Good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and available on demand. Available, by the way, on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, and, of course, YouTube and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022. It's 8 p.m. And we are live, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television model and radio model of PBS and NPR, but for our LGBTQ+ community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
Well, let's begin by welcoming anchor FayWhat. She's a radio and television personality and has a popular blog and YouTube channel aiming to unite the L and the G together. She's a hostess and MC for many South Florida events, an animal advocate, and owner of Fay's Fur Family. Also, make sure to catch the FayWhat Show, the first LGBTQ+ morning show, Mondays at 9 a.m. Eastern, online or your smart television. Good evening, Fay.
Good evening, boys. And I want to give a quick shout out to Chizzy, to Chizzy.com. They sent me the Rhonda DeSantis stickers. They sent a couple of the stickers to the Happening Out Television Network. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. Go get your sticker today. All the money goes back to Equality Florida. 100% of the proceeds goes back to Equality Florida. So Chizzy, awesome, awesome, awesome. I love it. I love it. Rhonda DeSantis. Love it. All right. Let's welcome anchor John Hayden. Oh, maybe he's got a new intro. Ooh, so excited. So John's been a journalist for 27 years and now works for several South Florida outlets, including SFGN, as community editor, covering politics, arts, and philanthropic organizations. Much of his career was spent as a celebrity journalist, covering the stupidity and scandals of Hollywood. John's interviewed nearly every big name in TV, movies, and music. And can't wait to see who's on this now. And he spent an evening watching a movie with the Duke of Lancaster. Welcome, John.
Thank you so much.
Who's the Duke of Lancaster?
I'm so glad you asked. The Duke of Lancaster is one of the many titles and peerages that is held by the Sovereign of England at this moment. Her Majesty the Queen of England.
So it's just another way to say the Queen of England. So you haven't even changed your intro yet, John? You've introduced you. Come on! I'm not going to introduce you next time. I'm just going to go. Here's John.
Yeah. Let's agree.
All right. The Queen. Wonder Twin Powers. That's activate. Right. Next time.
I mean, go all Ed McMahon.
Yeah, okay.
Or Jack Nicholson. I mean, either one would be fine. Let's welcome anchor Dr. Julio Capo, Jr. He is a history professor and the deputy director of the Wolfsonian Public Humanities Lab at Florida International University. He specializes in the history of race relations and immigration in the United States, as well as LGBTQ+ studies. He is an author of the book Welcome to Fairyland, Queer Miami Before 1940, and curated a new exhibition called Messages from a Pandemic, AIDS Graphic Communications. And hanging out with him is a real drag.
Oh, wow. Yes. And speaking of drag, Juliana, que mala eres. Juliana, que mala eres. So, Julio, I saw your drag persona out on the drive last week.
Oh my God.
Gosh.
Wait, that's without makeup.
Explain.
That's a monster.
Explain. I heard that this was after your feet was beat.
Oh,
Beat.
Wow.
What was that?
All right, that was.
You're
that's
pretty. Look at those legs.
Wow.
Can I borrow that
Look
dress?
at those knees.
That's all. Well,
I always imagine they'd be more scuffed up.
Yeah. Oh.
Wow.
Oh.
well, so
Shady table tonight.
So we had a fundraiser, and I did drag for the first time ever. It was for my gay softball team, and it was so much fun.
Breaking news. That's the first time he's ever done drag.
Good job.
Well, the only reason I say that is because I really was very nervous I was going to fall on my face. I had never worn heels before, really, and like really, like kind of.
You know, around the house, you know, cooking
Allegedly.
Sunday dinner, yes.
And I had so much fun. And also, if you're in Wilton Manors area, in Fort Lauderdale, in Broward County, or South Florida, our gay softball team, the Stonewall Supernovas, has a fundraiser this coming Thursday, August 11th, from 6:30 to about 8:30. And it'll be a great opportunity to meet the people and wine and cheese.
Where is that going to be?
At the Stonewall National Museum and Archives.
That's Thursday.
Thursday, August 11th.
Can we smell the jock
That's
straps?
next
You can-
Thursday.
Yeah,
Next
next
Thursday.
Thursday.
All
So a
right.
week from, this Thursday.
And I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
Is there any connection with the name of your softball team, Supernova, and Burning Out in Flames, and you doing drag? Is
I
there
mean,
any
I'm a
possible
flamer.
connection?
I'm just naturally a flamer,
Okay.
and I do what I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apparently not enough.
That's a lot of me.
Yeah.
Let's now welcome anchor, I guess I could share the stage. Welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro, an inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 8 books, including his latest, Fear of Muses, an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites. His movie review column called Screensaver can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco's Bay Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Hey, Gregg.
Good evening and happy National Grab Some Nuts Day.
Wait a minute. What?
Grab Some Nuts Day.
All right, we're going to Wilton and grabbing some nuts.
We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. And this evening we begin with the queer headlines for Wednesday, August 3rd.
Well, let's begin by querying up education. Wisconsin school district bans teachers displaying pride flags, wearing rainbows, or using pronouns. Superintendent Stephen Plum of the Kettle Moraine School District in Wisconsin has announced a clarification of an existing school board policy at a meeting. The meeting announced the new interpretation was also posted, by the way, on Facebook and states, quote, per Board Policy 522, Employee Code of Conduct, expectations moving forward for staff not to have political flags or religious messaging in their classroom, including pride flags, and to adhere to standardized email signatures with pronouns prohibited, end quote. Plum said that the policy changes, quote, were in a world where politics are highlighted. It just puts people in uncomfortable positions, end quote. Plum believes this policy is fair as the blanket ban also includes support for political figures, such as MAGA hats, as well as imagery such as the thin blue line flag.
After initial legal analysis, the expectation is that teachers and administration will not have political flags or religious messaging in their classroom or on their person. This expectation includes pride flags. This expectation relates to staff emails and email signature lines. The standardized email expectation is name, position, title, location, certification, awards, and degrees, which could involve national board certification as an example, anything along those lines. And this expectation prohibits pronouns, political language, religious views, etc. And that is in compliance with 522, and that is a professional expectation for the beginning of the school year.
So I just want to make sure the board is on board with that. Is there any concern with that?
I have a question. So you said religious, wearing religious things. You're saying they can't wear a cross?
Well, Jay, this is where we start drawing lines.
Right.
And,
so I'm just trying to understand where we're drawing that line.
So if it's something on their person and it's in a necklace or something like that, and it's not in your face, shall I say, I think that is acceptable. I would say that that is a personal item, and I wouldn't worry about that, as opposed to something like a T-shirt that has large letters on it.
No, I understand that. I was
messaging.
talking about personal, ring, necklace, bracelet.
Yep. Discreet jewelry, I think, is acceptable.
Okay.
You didn't mention Black Lives Matter, but that would be covered under this as well.
That's a political leaning. I think Thin Blue Line could be considered political. I think We Back the Badge could be political. I think pride flags could be political.
MAGA hats.
We're in a world where politics are highlighted, and it puts people in uncomfortable positions.
Where do we begin?
Okay, cheeseheads, quote, puts people in uncomfortable positions, end quote. Imagine what it's like to be LGBTQ right now. Talk about uncomfortable positions.
It's very uncomfortable.
So rude. It's
But you can wear a cross, okay? Oh,
yeah,
no, wait,
religion's okay,
no,
yeah.
you can't. Religion's okay.
Well,
Christianity is okay.
Christianity.
Better, let's make that clear.
Oh, yeah.
Christianity is okay, but everything
Yeah.
else, no. You can't
Yeah.
wear. So how about, I know couples that have wedding bands that have a rainbow flag on it, and that is their married
Or
ring.
how about discreet jewelry that is incorporating a rainbow?
You can't wear that either.
It would be the exact same standard that the commissioner of the school board says would be prohibited. You watch him wobble, and then you watch him fall down in a simple question. Does this include crosses?
No,
Because you know what's getting ready to happen in terms of the tidal wave that's going to fall on him.
Yeah.
And he tries to wobble of finding a way to explain, well, yes, it should include that because you can't have any displays at all. And then he continues on to go, well, it's discreet personal jewelry, so that would be okay.
But this is the pronoun thing is just vindictive. That's just stupid, and it's a clear message that gay is lesser. And have you noticed over the last year, uncomfortable is now the buzzword among Republicans. You can't, as a business owner, I could not hold a meeting for my employees where we talked about how about racial discrimination and how to recognize acceptance and everything. That's literally outlawed for a private business to talk about that with their employees. And when you say Wisconsin, you think, oh, this must be way out in the sticks and, in rural Wisconsin. This is only about 30 minutes west of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So this is in a very, it's outside the county, but it's right there. And so this is creeping into the places that we think are really blue, like Milwaukee that lifted Joe Biden over the top in the last election.
Well, it's in between Madison and Milwaukee, which is some of the most liberal, probably the most liberal part of the whole state.
Not more. And they're setting the stage for the rest, okay? This is going to be the same here coming up next. And what do you hear that? Do you hear that? Those are all those teachers walking off their job. Teachers are not going to put up with this. I mean, come on. Or I hope that they don't.
Let's change the pride flag. Let's swipe. I wish there's none of it. Let's switch red and orange. Now it's not a pride flag. Now it's just some rainbow colors out of a scientifically approved spectrum.
To the issue of teachers, Julio, you're a professor at Florida International. And you have lots of experience of historical discrimination. Your book, Miami, prior to 1940, as one example. What do you think about this story of creep into school boards?
I mean, school boards are such powerful organizations. So much of our laws and our policies are implemented at this kind of local level. This is not at all surprising in any stretch of the imagination. We could see, at one point, like in the 70s in Virginia, we saw that there were people outlawed textbooks. That is, we were so worried about kind of diversity and this is not unusual. There's so many kind of examples of this through history. But one of the things that I think we really need to focus on here is that word of uncomfortable. It's increasingly becoming code word for something else, right? Like it's it's ambiguous enough, it's amorphous enough. And of course, and Faye, you got this, you hit this on the head. With religious freedom, they're really talking about Christianity. Yeah. I would love to see how a Muslim, this would fare in the same kind of space. This is such a clear violation of freedom of expression and our First Amendment rights that this can't, but the problem is our courts are increasingly moving to the right as well. Their understandings of what religious freedom is, right, and religious rights are, as it's been built as a movement really in the last 20 years, is so strong.
I'm curious from an academic standpoint, because 10 years ago, the natural response to this would be defeated in the courts. That's the natural response. prior to Obama with George Bush, the natural response would have still been that it gets defeated in the courts. What's your kind of academic observation of what will happen in the courts on something like this?
It's hard to know. It really depends on what kind of judges are going to be looking at this.
If it gets out of state and gets into federal, any difference in feelings?
If it goes to federal, I mean, even at the circuit level, so many of our circuits have now been put in with very conservative judges who have seen religious freedom as a very particular and kind of exceptional, right? And when they say, again, religious freedom here means Christianity.
Yeah. Yep.
And of course, if we go all the way to the Supreme Court, no doubt over the last few years especially, religious freedom has definitely been upheld.
Trumps everything.
And it's established
Literally
really
Trumps.
literally trumps
Yeah, that's right.
everything. It's dangerous time.
Before we move on, one last observation to the uncomfortable word. There's lots of very, very smart people that are writing about the uncomfortableness in America. And they make the point that our whole democracy is based on being uncomfortable, that we challenge ourselves in our being uncomfortable in our free speech, in our free press, in our disagreement, and then in our dissent. And that if we try to wash that away, we are actually harming our democracy. What do y'all think about that concept? Because it's academically being discussed extensively.
Sounds right.
So one of the things, one of the biggest arguments for saying things like in a classroom, like my pronouns are he, him, and his, for example, a lot of people have said is really important because even if everyone in the room is cisgendered, it makes you take a step back and say, my gender is not natural. My gender is, right? That is, that I shouldn't take for granted that everyone's going to assume that I'm male, that I'm it's even if, right, everyone kind of says he, him, his, or her, it puts you in a space where you don't assume, right? That isn't so much of our assumptions are transphobic, are homophobic, are racist, right? And it gives us, that doesn't mean that all of them are, they come from bad places, but it does have you kind of question what is assigned to us or what is kind of just assumed by us and other things that we also as a people get a say in, right? Like our identities are in flux and they change.
Well, clearly this is, we're reporting this at Queer News tonight. This is a school board in Wisconsin. And we're reporting this because this is a disturbing trend. And as Julio said, school boards are exceptionally powerful. It's not just the seat of the president or your governor or your senator. They have incredible power.
Vote.
Exactly.
Next, let's queer up trans rights. New study shows police 4 times more likely to stop trans people for reasonable suspicion. The California Attorney General's office recently issued a draft report that drew data from 58 of the state's largest law enforcement agencies. The data shows that nearly half, 44%, of all stops made by police of transgender individuals were based on reasonable suspicion alone. Cisgender women were stopped for reasonable suspicion less than 9% of the time, and cisgender men were stopped for that reason 11% of the time. Alex Binsfeld, legal director at the San Francisco-based Transgender, Gender Variant, and Intersex Justice Project, told the San Francisco Chronicle, quote, "It's in effect a way to enforce Western gender binary norms on appearance, that you will be punished if you are not gender binary in your appearance. Policing of trans folks at these disparate rates has led advocates to argue it's a status crime," end quote. These statistics are a large part of why so many members of the transgender community feel unsafe with police presence at Pride events.
I'm sad to say that our reporting tonight is the first time that I've made an actual connection, perhaps not legitimate on my part, but the first time that I've made a real connection of a very tangible argument of the harm of police at Pride and major LGBT events. I had never considered that before, that there's actual fear of the trans community coming to a Pride event because there is such a dramatic police presence.
And those numbers are so far away from the mean, so far off and so skewed. You can't
9% to 44%.
Right.
It's dramatic.
You can't say this is a statistical anomaly, like 9 to 12%. You know what I mean? It just is. And the thing is, suspicious activity or reasonable suspicion, that's like the word uncomfortable. It is. It's the bigoted catch-all for law enforcement officers that are bigoted.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I'm really curious about with this story, too, is just how many people are at the intersection of being a trans person or non-binary person and also a person of color. right? That is, because if we think about what the crime of driving while black, right?
Well, and back in 2016, they did a study, and that was what had came out, that people of color were being targeted in that aspect. Right. Now, I personally, I get it. I'm a light Latina. I am passable if I don't open my mouth, right? But I have gotten pulled over with people of color in my car, with drag queens in my car, with women of living the transgender experience, and it has not been a pretty sight. And it has taken like an hour, out on the side of the road of 95 where we're treated like absolute crap.
Because that would never happen in 100 years to me.
No.
Ever in 100 years. That is so shocking.
And can I point out that right now, it's a different story, but it's tied in. Ron DeSantis is saying a 1947 Supreme Court ruling says anybody dressed in, like men dressed as women, is illegal and they can be arrested. So just being in drag or being trans and being true to yourself, that would literally be more than reasonable suspicion if DeSantis has his way.
Well, and that's the time machine that he loves. We're going back to before Stonewall with the, we are certain articles of clothing of your gender. Really, we're really going to go back to that. That's truly horrifying.
The arbitrariness of this. I mean, we all know. I mean, what does of your gender mean? Like,
at the end of the day, it allows us that are enforcing this in terms of random stops, traffic stops, etc. It's allowing us to exhibit our homophobia, and that includes the trans community. It allows us to represent our anti-LGBT feelings in a legal way. And that's the distressing nature of this story.
Absolutely. And now we move on and queer up South Florida gay news. Monkeypox is spreading. Sex workers are fighting back. With nearly 6,000 cases reported in the U.S., monkeypox is spreading fast. Now, it's spread through close, intimate contact. And this outbreak started at a pride and circuit party in Europe and then migrated to America. And that's why this round is disproportionately affecting the gay and male bisexual community. More than 400 cases have been diagnosed in South Florida. In this week's SFGN, online now and on stands tomorrow, I look at an effort to protect an often overlooked community, workers in the adult and sex industry. Fab Scout Entertainment, a major player in the gay adult industry based right here in South Florida, held an on-site vaccination clinic for its workers and staff. President Howard Andrew said, quote, "I want to help talent, crew, and other colleagues by making it easy to get the vaccine. And vaccines are hard to come by. Appointments are often all booked up within an hour of going online. The government just ordered another 750,000 doses. You can read more on my look at this growing health crisis on stands tomorrow and online now at SFGN. And in part of my reporting for this story, I talked with Dr. Zachary Henry, and he is a doctor for AHF North Point Clinic up in Fort Lauderdale around Imperial Point. And I talked with him 2 days after he saw his first case, and this was right before Pride. He saw the first case, treated it, got vaccinated himself because he was coming in contact. At one point over the last 6 weeks, he was seeing 6 or 7 patients in a day, just him, and still sees, he says, on average about 3 a day for this one practice. So this is a growing thing. And you see a lot of writing about it online, but no one's really talking about it.
And to that point, and that's what's really interesting about your story, John, and in the interviews and doing this reporting in South Florida Gay News on stands now, is why is monkeypox, it's a big story, but it's not a big story. Why is it not a big story?
I think everything right now and for years to come will be judged against COVID.
And nothing's that big.
Yeah. I mean, COVID was something that I could literally transmit to you, who are just across the table from me. Yeah. This is not like that. It has to be prolonged. It has to be intimate. And it's not particularly deadly. I think the mortality rate is 3%, and most of those come from people with secondary or underlying medical conditions. So it's not horrible, but it's bad.
Yeah.
And if we let it get out of control, it can get worse.
And can we give kudos to Fab Scout for what they're doing for their employees? That is just fantastic on their effort to do that.
And so many sex workers have spoken out. I have to say it's been kind of incredible to watch sex workers come out and really protest of a lot of the government's non-response. So thank you for the great work you're doing, Con. It's really important. And I was lucky. My softball team. I keep on talking about softball. I swear it's not all I do. But like,
are you a lesbian now?
I am. I've always been. And but we got a note, like there's a few, appointments available, and all of us signed up right away, and we were able to. But we're lucky. Like that is in South Florida, we've been one of the kind of communities that has, even though very difficult to get, in other parts of the country, they're not getting it at all.
Yeah.
My friends in Ohio, my friends and I have some friends in Wisconsin who are telling me that it's been impossible for them to get anything.
Yeah. Well, 6% of nationwide cases are here in Broward and Miami-Dade.
Yeah.
6%.
Of the entire country.
Of the entire
But people
country.
travel.
Okay,
and
yeah, of course. But also understand that it's just not limited to gay boys.
Right.
It's not just gay and bisexual men. And I hate that they keep on saying that because other people can get it. There's kids with it now. There's women with it. I mean, it's not just a gay man.
Oh, and it rings of the homophobia of the AIDS crisis.
100%.
Completely.
And DeSantis today said he would not call a state of emergency.
Of course he won't.
But Newsom did in California.
Newsom did, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I know, that's right.
the contrast of different coasts is what that is. The one thing that I do want to say, and it reminded me when I read John's story in SFGN, when I read that Fab Scout and specifically Howard Andrew had done this, you know what my reaction was? No surprise at all. And I just want to say we connect the dots between monkeypox and the pandemic. Howard, Andrew, and Fab Scout organized for weeks and months at a time food distribution programs in Wilton Manors, and for people that were in great need for food during especially the early and intermediate days of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And many, I worked several of them where I'm just distributing food. Just tell me what to do, and I'll just do whatever you tell me to do. And many porn stars, sex workers came because they needed food, because they were in an environment where their job had stopped. And Howard Andrew and Fab Scout stepped in to say, wait, we should respect everyone and all people, and they have needs and services that should be provided to them. And so when I saw that he had done this at Fab Scout, and he did not help in supporting the inoculation of just sex workers. Other people in the community were able to take advantage of it. And my reaction is, well, this is incredibly ordinary, because that's what Fab Scout was, and that's who Howard Andrew is. Our entire community is grateful to you, brought to light by this SFGN story.
Now let's queer up the world view. Ukraine's Zelensky says civil partnerships for same-sex couples may become legal. On Tuesday, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky responded to a petition asking to legalize same-sex marriage in the country. In a statement, he wrote, quote, "According to the Constitution of Ukraine, marriage is based on the free consent of a woman and a man, Article 51. The Constitution of Ukraine cannot be changed during a state of war or emergency." And that's coming from Article 157 of the Constitution of Ukraine. At the same time, the government worked out solutions regarding the legalization of civil partnerships registered in Ukraine as part of the work on establishing and ensuring human rights and freedoms. In accordance with Article 116 of the Constitution of Ukraine, the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine takes measures to ensure the rights and freedoms of people and citizens. Taking into account the above, I turn to the Prime Minister of Ukraine with a request to consider the issue raised in the electronic petition and inform about the relevant results. That's end quote. Wow. What do you all think?
Well, and he said, quote, "All people are free and equal in their dignity and rights."
Yeah, it's powerful.
Can you imagine Putin saying something like that?
No, but that would never happen.
I mean, it's mind-blowing what a different kind of person he is.
He is recognizing his LGBTQ citizens as families and as citizens fighting for their country. Because we've done several stories, I know, Al, on this show about a drag queen that was fighting on the front lines as well as on her keyboard. A couple of trans people I know we've talked about.
That's right.
This is bringing people together, and I think it could really affect real change. It also doesn't hurt that it helps get the EU bloc behind you even further, because that is part of it.
You're suggesting there also could be a political motivation for him to do
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And we put that on the table, and that would be completely appropriate, because that's what a president of a country does.
Yeah.
He acts
That's
in
his
a
job.
political
That's
nature,
his
right?
job.
That's his job. So you don't criticize him for doing his job, and you put that on the table. You know what's interesting to me? President Zelensky is doing something that is really quite brave, in my opinion. They're in the middle of this war. They're doing better than the start, by all means. Putin and Russia does not seem to be perceptually doing as anywhere near what they thought was going to happen. But Zelensky doesn't have access to any polling. Ukraine and Russia are brothers and sisters. They're kissing cousins. So much of the attitude in Russia is the same attitude in Ukraine, and in Ukraine in Russia. So Zelensky is going out on a limb here, asking the prime minister to explore the protection of following up these requests that are coming in for civil union for LGBTQ plus. That is very brave, because he does not know if he has the support of all Ukrainians in majority opinion. That is especially brave when you compare and contrast it to Putin and Russia. Putin is on a drive to completely eliminate LGBTQ.
Annihilate. Yep.
Meaning you don't exist. We have no queer people in Russia. You contrast that to Zelensky, who have the same kind of personality of an electorate in the Ukraine, where that person is saying, no, not only do they not exist, they do, but they should be allowed civil rights and civil unions. That's a compare and contrast. The place of the two major places that have taken refugees from Ukraine is Poland, who is now famous for their LGBTQ free zones and being sued by the EU, and Hungary, who has had among the most aggressive outside of Russia, the most aggressive and egregious attacks on LGBT inside the European Union. All of these surrounding Zelensky, President Zelensky. If nothing else from this story, the man is tremendously brave, because he does not know where Ukrainians ultimately sit on that. And that speaks volumes for him saying, wait, rights are rights. We'll see where all of this goes, but they should have it. And that's what he accomplished. And we're telling that story.
And now we're going to queer up politics. Out state lawmaker claims GOP lied about being pro-LGBTQ. Log cabin Republicans, are you listening? In a story that proves that LGBTQ plus people can be as gullible as anyone else, openly queer former New Hampshire state rep Yvonne Bailey recently wrote a column for the Daily Beast about how she felt lied to by the GOP when they claimed to be LGBTQ plus accepting. The former lawmaker, who states that she knew she was a Republican before she was queer, chose the party because she identifies as a natural contrarian. She highlights former President Trump's holding up of a rainbow flag, openly gave Peter Thiel's speech at the 2016 Republican convention, and the popularity of LGBTQ plus commentators such as Caitlyn Jenner, Tammy Bruce, and Rob Smith as proof that the GOP was accepting of the LGBTQ plus community and would not attack gay marriage. From within the conservative bubble, she apparently missed or ignored the Trump administration banning transgender individuals from serving in the military, their support of government-funded adoption agencies being allowed to deny gay parents, and arguments that religious beliefs should allow for discrimination. In the article, she said, quote, "Now, not even 2 years later, the right has started an all-out anti-gay panic that seriously threatens marriage equality. Conservatives are hurling insults at innocent gays online. The majority of House Republicans voted against codifying gay marriage at the federal level. Supporters of marriage equality have been accused by Republican candidates of sexualizing kindergartners and being groomers." End quote. Oh, New Hampshire. Oh, New Hampshire, New England's ugly stepchild. Live free or die. Please choose the latter.
You know, I have to say, I stand with this person, because I was shocked to find out the grand old party and Trump has misled people. No, seriously, this person says they were
If you're not a good comedian, because when you tell a joke, you pause.
That was a joke.
Right? But no, she says in this article, or she says in this quote, that the support for Trump was even stronger in 2020. And this comes after 4 years of supporting discrimination in adopting, banning trans-military, prioritizing religious freedom, and their non...
Andrew Lloyd Webber, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina, playing in my head. I don't know why.
Pobrecita. She literally listened to Trump and Caitlyn Jenner, because those are two incredible sources. You can't go wrong there.
And who said Caitlyn Jenner was popular? Seriously.
Wouldn't you like to hear Caitlyn Jenner today, though?
No.
What could she? No, honestly. What could she possibly say today?
Something ignorant.
To justify what has been watched in the last night.
And let's put it this way. She says in the last 2 years there's been an all-out war on gays by the Republicans. No, this started in 2004. At a minimum, this can be traced when George Bush said, we need to change our Constitution because you will screw up America if you get married. That was the start of the all-out assault, and it may have ebbed a little bit for a few years, but it's back. So if you were still with them after 2004, then you have not been with us this entire time.
And you know, one should never take New Hampshire for granted.
Everyone.
Oh, Gregg.
I hate to put it in these terms, but like I think
that was an election joke.
And a mineral joke.
I think about something my grandmother always used to tell me, and it's an expression in Spanish.
Don't eat that.
Dime con quién anda y te diré quién eres. Like, tell me who you are hanging out with, or who you hang out with, and I'll tell you who you are. That is, like, if you tolerate racism, if you tolerate homophobia, you are also, I mean, what you tolerate is also what you represent, right? And this is to say that you somehow don't know, you knew. Yeah.
They pulled the wool over my eyes. I had no idea they hated the gays.
Yes, exactly. Well, and we were told repeatedly, we've reported on it 10,000 times at Queer News Tonight, that Donald Trump was the most gay, embracing president in history. And we laugh now. We go back and watch the statements that were made. I could not help but think when you're telling the story about Peter Thiel. He is the gay billionaire that has funded so many GOP campaigns in the United States. What is he saying now? He is watching an all-out assault on LGBT all over the country. But Peter, aren't you paying attention to what's going on in Florida? Do you think if you were here in Florida and you were in school, you would be exempted? Do you think if you were trans, you would be exempted? Do you think if you're married in Florida that you'll be exempted from a Clarence Thomas? Where are you now in terms of your political support and the millions upon millions of dollars that you have spent to help create this voice in America? By the way, we only have one other, I believe, out billionaire, and her name is Rihanna. Completely different than Peter Thiel, by the way. One other thing. Every conservative that I have been associated with in 4 years at this television network has told me that the Republicans are not anti-LGBT. Over and over and over. The log cabin Republicans, every single one that I've ever encountered, have told me they're not. They're not. Where are you now? I don't hear log cabin Republicans right now talking out loud, mostly because they're in their foxholes fighting for their lives in the GOP. You want to talk about Texas? Last thing, I predict in this subject about the fight among the Republican voice that over the course of the next 2 years, Julio is a much greater expert on this subject than I am in terms of the history. You learn from your history, you pay attention to your history, so we don't repeat the history. I predict over the course of the next 2 years, between now and November in 24, that the Republicans are going to fine-tune this hate campaign so sharply that not since Stonewall in 1969, even over the Anita Bryant days, it will be the greatest assault on the LGBTQ community, not only in our lifetimes, but in history. And I can't help but wonder where all the conservative, Republican, gay LGBT people are and where they're going to be in the next 2 years, because you're getting ready to get it on the chin, just like everybody else in our community. And it leads to a friend of mine, Power of Infinity, who taught me this early on at Happening Out Television Network. Al, there are always roaches for raid.
Mm-hmm.
And there is.
And for the record, Peter Thiel is a homosexual. He's not gay. There's a difference.
Okay. All right, next let's queer up gay culture. Let's do something fun. P-Town, the 2022 Bear Week hot pics from the Firemen's Ball. P-Town celebrated Bear Week last month, and it's not only produced a monkeypox outbreak, insert joke here, but also some great pictures of sexy guys. Bear Week may be a celebration of the big, burly, and hairy members of the community, but it's a fun and welcoming time for much of the LGBTQ plus community. And Dr. Julio Capo. It's not only grrs and woofs and furballs, but also the famous Firemen's Ball. The event, produced by the Provincetown Bears Group and hosted by the Crown and Anchor, is an annual event that is meant to raise funds for the Provincetown Firemen's Association. And all of us here in Wilton Manors, we salute our brothers and sisters and cousins in P-Town, because this event looked damn fun.
Right, we have to go to P-Town, Al. We have to go to P-Town.
We got to do the show there.
We've got to do the okay, so let's go back to this bear weekend. Julio, last time I checked, you are not a bear.
No, but
your hubby ain't a bear either.
No, he's not.
So explain this to me. Did you like fall upon P-Town? Because you actually have to take a little ferry to get there.
Inquiring minds want to know.
How did that happen?
You know, this is 100%. I love Bear Week. He loves Bear Week. I love bears. I love all sorts of things, right? And I do love bears. Who doesn't love themselves a good bear, right?
Everybody.
I mean, I do. But
your husband's not a bear.
He's not. He's not.
I can barely stand it.
Well, I will say that.
John.
So I can barely stand it. It took me a second. This is such a fun week. I have to say, Bear Week is always such a great week in P-Town. Everyone is always so friendly. The people who work in the restaurants and stuff there always say how much fun and the spirit there is really, it awakens somehow. It's very collegial. It's very fun. Anyway, we are actually going that weekend, incidentally, and it happened to coincide with Bear Week. Allegedly. Yeah, I don't know. I'm the one who booked. No,
sure.
Now, but, here's my question. I'm hoping we're going to show more pictures.
Yeah, me too. I mean, allegedly. Yeah.
But my question about Bear Week and you being there, I have never been to Provincetown. I have never been. I can't believe it. All the places, 147 countries, never been to Provincetown. Now, is Bear Week in Provincetown as much as I think American Horror Story in Provincetown was? Is there any possibility that it was similar to that? Or
no, not at all scary.
But am I the only one? Like, bears have been around forever, obviously, right? But the visibility that they're getting lately, like, they're just everywhere, and I'm loving it.
I like the visibility of these photos.
Yeah.
But, honestly, I mean, I would love to go to the Firemen's Ball and have their hose put out my burning fire.
Right.
But, by the way, also, there was a burning sensation several days later.
Wait, what? You have
right?
One more.
That was a lot of skin-to-skin contact there. That was a little unnerving.
All right.
Okay, John.
All right, John. Let's move on.
Let's go to church. We are proud of our special partnership with the Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church, and it's right here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out Television Studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday international service at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, with more than 30,000 people watching every week.
Kiara Johnson, the Executive Director of the National LGBTQ Task Force, and is one of the most important civil rights.
Wait, who's that
Julio.
sexy
That was-
bear?
that was Julio.
That hairy.
Otter.
Trying to be a bear.
Otter. Oh, I got it. All right. Well, that is today's news for the LGBTQ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience, watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, happening on Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors at Queer News Tonight, including FayWhat and John Hayden, Gregg Shapiro, and Dr. Julio Capo Jr. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to our LGBTQ plus world, we wish you
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus